What is in store for 2024 for the fibromyalgia community? What changes do you hope to see in fibromyalgia? What resources do you need? Hello, what's up, my fibromyalgia friends? Good to see you. Happy New Year in 2024. I am Melissa Talwar. I am the Executive Director of the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I'm also a board-certified functional medicine health coach with additional training in clinical nutrition and clinical neuroscience. Good to see everybody out there. So if you are watching this live, please say hello, drop us a comment, drop us an emoji, let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you're also watching the replay, please leave a comment in this as you watch the replay. Let us know what type of resources you're looking forward to seeing in 2024. What changes would you like to see in the fibromyalgia community for 2024? It's exciting to be here. Thank you, everyone, for supporting us for the Fibromyalgia Community Conference at the end of the year. It was a lot more work than I had thought. I thought maybe splitting up the days would be easier. Unfortunately, it took a lot more skill sets. So thank you to everyone that was involved, all our speakers, all of our guests, all of our guest hosts, and everybody that tuned in, all of you out there. There were some dedicated people that stayed for almost the entire conference. So props to you. I hope you got a lot of detailed information from it. We're going to be continuously putting out new content in 2024. This is huge. I have to get used to saying 2024. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be more of an organization update for everybody out there, a community live, a chance for everybody to say hello. So that's why if you are watching the replay, definitely post in the comments to say hello. And again, let us know what resources you're looking forward to seeing. What would you like to see? What kind of support do you need? And what hope? Let's bring in some more hope for changes in 2024 for fibromyalgia, because this is going to be a fun discussion. We're going to do some community lives. We're going to have some interviews up in the future, some other content for people to enjoy. So it'll be so good to connect with everybody again. Hello, Katrina. So good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, Mo. Good to see you. Welcome from Chicago. I owe you an email. I'm going to get some updates. So first, we're going to do some overview of what this organization prepared, what's ahead, what's new. Then I'm going to talk about some personal updates for me at the end as well. So thank you for tuning in too. And again, we'll answer any questions, or if you have questions that you want to see videos about, or maybe we can find someone that can talk about that subject title, who's maybe a professional, healthcare professional, we'll definitely bring them aboard, because it's just great to connect. I know we have a lot on our plate up ahead and a lot to do. So I'm going to just bring in the slide deck here as we move into some organizational updates. Sleep issues. Okay, awesome. Yes, huge. And does anyone out there have, like, it's so, I don't know, I struggle with sleep still to this day. It's maddening, and trying to figure out what to do. It's so frustrating. I'm such a light sleeper as well. So it's really bad. And then trying to get back and falling asleep, like I've been able to work through getting to sleep, like falling asleep a little easier. But then if I wake up in the middle of the night, it's definitely a struggle to get back to sleep. And I know pain insomnia is a real thing. So all of these questions, I do want to do we have to do a deeper dive with some special guests too that were on our list. I know we got to meet a lot of them too for the Demystifying Fibromyalgia conference with Dr. Ron. Dr. Simmons spoke. So we're going to share some of the content from Dr. Simmons and that conference too this year. But it would be fantastic to get some more speakers that can really help us dial in sleep. What's going on? Are there additional things that we need to know in order to figure out this? What are most aspects of sleep study? I don't know if people have had a sleep study before. I haven't. I never got referred to a sleep study. I think I know why. I think there had been some bias in my healthcare charting, because a lot of people only assume that they're looking for sleep apnea aspects in certain cases. And so it's really frustrating. And I think that's a huge part. But then at the other side of it, I have a question on whether it's valuable enough, like, to going through the process, because we know with fibromyalgia, we get unrefreshed sleep. It's a huge characteristic of fibromyalgia that is sort of distinguishable. I have heard from providers, if someone is sleeping well, I don't know if they have fibromyalgia. So there's a lot of questions there to ask. So even if you did a sleep study, what would it tell you that would be beneficial enough? And see, I don't know enough about this. And this is why I want to dive into the research and ask the experts. And if you've had a sleep study before, let me know. Let me know the results, how it impacted your health. Did it help provide valuable information? Or was that more of the stepping stool that you needed to get things like CPAPs or other things, because you feel like you need the sleep study first, then you can get the other tools that can help you with airways and stuff like that. But what did it show? Did anyone not show anything where they needed that tool? I'm intrigued. I want to learn more. I'm going to dive into all of this as well. Going to dive into all these neurotransmitters as well and talk about that. Let's go deep into the science this year, producing more content, which I'm excited about. Let's get guests in that will nerd out with us on this content, because I want to get some more different types of information there, and maybe even from other chronic illness conditions that might be overlapping. Anybody intrigued to share stuff? Because I think sometimes we get stuck in the psychosocial realm, and I'm huge in the biology realm, which I know there's disagreements out there. There's people that believe you need the psychosocial and have it evenly spread, but I don't think that it is doing that, which is fine. And we'll get into some details too with some of the medical providers. I just think people have bias, natural bias. I have a bias because I feel like nutrition really helped me. So that is one of my bias. But I just think there's some natural bias with all the medical providers out there, and it's fine. Like, we each have our own strength to bring in. But diving into some of this information, I would love to present more on the biological side. What really deep down is keeping us from sleep? And I know there's other aspects too when we talk about stress and things like that, which many of us can't throw out the window. Stress is just a part of our lives. And for many of us that are caregivers or have other things, it's working, all kinds of aspects of stress. It's really hard to get rid of. So how much does that affect the biology? What tools can we use? What happens when we run out of those tools? Or if the tools stop working? Like, how much mindfulness and meditation can you really do to help you sleep if you are stressed out to the point where it's really starting to affect you, and what that looks like? So I think this is just having natural conversations this year about these topics, diving deep into what makes a difference with all of this, and getting opinions from experts and other people, healthcare professionals that might not have opinions that agree with concepts that I might have done. So it's just interesting too. So I like this. Rebecca says it does help some, and improvements as a plus. So this is fascinating to me, like what we can do. And does everybody need a CPAP? And then I was part of some brain group health coaching where this conversation came up a lot, and it's really complicated because there's different masks that people could use. There's some people that don't get a lot of relief, even though they need a CPAP. Where do they go next? There's different techniques. There's airway tools, like dental tools, that are now being used to help people. It's really a deep dive. And I think I learned a lot with the Demystifying Fibromyalgia conference from Dr. Ron, because he brought in a lot of dental health, airway, healthcare professionals to learn. It's complicated. And it's something that's not talked about enough with fibromyalgia, and it might be just naturally missed with all of us, especially because I don't know how much people pick up that we might have airway issues when we're younger. We may not notice it as much as children if we're having sleep issues, but then I don't think I would have noticed how to verbalize it. I struggled verbalizing growing pains anyway. So how would you verbalize this? And then dental health in itself, how it prevents, where our tongue lies. Like, these are all like little variables that might actually be huge depending on the person. And I do think that it gets ignored. I've never had a discussion with a fibromyalgia specialist about my airways before. Never. I don't hear it often at conferences either. It's very focused on pain management. But if these things are percolating and you have a strong like obstruction of airway, you're not going to get enough oxygen to your brain. You're not going to sleep well. So this is all going to like interweave into this cycle. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, I want to see better support for medications. Yes. I'm going to talk about some research too, and I didn't put it in my deck for today because we'll go into a deeper dive. Unfortunately, there was an LDN study that came out, and I'll reference it and I'll try to dig it up again. So it's been a long week, but it showed that it didn't really have much improvement in pain for fibromyalgia patients, which is disappointing. I need to do a deeper dive. If anyone has seen this, and already read through it and has more information, please post and share. I'll definitely leave it in the comments so we can read. So it was a little disappointing to see this. They do hint at help with the brain aspect, which I need to understand a little bit more because inflammation in the brain, right? So I don't know if they were trying to look at certain characteristics of LDN, and so they didn't really see huge results compared to the placebo, which is disappointing because we are advocating for things like LDN. We've heard from all of you. A lot of people say that LDN helps with their fibromyalgia and the components and other autoimmune conditions. And we had a speaker this last year who talked about it, and we hear it a lot from different speakers too, like Dr. Ginevra and other people. We reference the LDN Research Trust. So it's a huge component of LDN, and I've heard that it's helped a lot of people. But so to see that research study last year was really disappointing. I need to look into that to figure out what the heck happened. What were they actually looking at? And because we need the changes. And unfortunately, it's a compounded medication. It's compounded, and apparently too, pharmaceutical companies can't patent it. So this makes a long advocacy issue of finding help when how can they make money? This is a big problem with just healthcare system, profit over patients. So changing this, what can we do? There's going to be a lot of reliance too on lifestyle changes. We're going to talk about this in other aspects of our content this year too. So what can you do without potentially finding the FDA approved drugs? It is a long road, and we need the research. So when we do go to Washington, D.C., or we have these virtual meetings, we are increasing awareness with our congressional leaders on the importance of valuable research that's going to make a difference and translate into potentially pharmaceutical treatments or other treatments that are going to be able to sustain us and actually improve our quality of life. There has been a lot of research recently coming out on CBT therapy, which I know we talked about Swing Care having digital therapeutics in this realm, TENS units. So what that looks like, and is that sustainable long-term using these applications? Is it affordable? Is it accessible? Those are big keys, because in the end, we really want to improve the quality of life for patients living with fibromyalgia. We want you to feel better. How do we get there? That's a huge path. These are huge questions to answer in 2024. So we're going to dig deep, and hopefully we'll be able to provide a lot of this information. Oh, happy birthday, John. Welcome. Definitely happy birthday celebrations to you. Excited to have you here. Everybody's tuning in. Thelma, hello. Okay, so Katrina, you did see that article I saw and said certain high dosages. Well, that's what it is. It's low dose naltrexone. And I remember asking Dr. Yusuf about this, because unfortunately, if you're given higher dosage, which I hear all the time for LDN, when I talk to certain patients, they say, yeah, my doctor prescribed me LDN. And they're on really high dosages, like 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams. And so we're talking about low dose. So prescribing it at lower dosages, some people have side effects too as they titrate up. So that is actually a great point in the study, is to figuring out if there's a good point for people. I don't know if there's a good average, because we're so different from each other and each of us respond. Also with LDN, I heard, and there's different opinions too, it can affect your sleep. So some doctors actually recommend you taking it in the morning to mitigate that, because you get very vivid dreams or have issues with that. Some people do, so that's why they recommend in the morning. The dosage is important. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think that they were able to adjust in that research study, particularly on making sure the dosage is different for everyone. Yes, Thelma, it's LDN, so low dose naltrexone, which we like to share information with. We've heard from various doctors that do treat fibromyalgia patients, and we're hearing it more and more, that LDN has helped their patients. They're on board. So you've heard it from Dr. Ginevra, Dr. Yusuf Celebi from the LDN Research Trust. He spoke at the conference. Dr. Matias spoke at our conference last year. He treats with LDN. He's done LDN research for fibromyalgia that he has on his website years and years ago, and it showed help. And I know Dr. Chadwick, Dr. Andrea Chadwick, she's mentioned LDN usage. So that study itself really threw me off, but it's a good thing to try because I know the side effects are less, like vivid dreams and thugs. I'm not exactly sure if anyone knows of additional side effects that they may have. Please post it in the comments. But considering what we are already given with the FDA approved drugs, oh my goodness. And shout out to Judy, who introduced me to a group of people that are struggling to get off of Cymbalta, which I could probably do a whole rant video about, and just some of these side effects for these other medications I don't understand with the FDA approved drugs. It's really hard because we all know with things like gabapentin or Lyrica, we've seen people gain weight, and I don't know what it is with the resistance for that. I've worked with people who are trying to just, they're told by their providers, you need to lose weight, you need to do this stuff. Seems to be something with the brain that it just becomes so resistant when you're on the medication. It can make you very foggy as well. So we do need, I don't understand why they don't try LDN as far as things go too. So it's important. And we want to talk about all of this in 2024 and break it up in different videos, have more experts. I definitely appreciate the LDN Research Trust, Linda, referring some of our physicians for the conference. It was helpful. There is content on that with their YouTube channel. They have various interviews of medical professionals, not only with fibromyalgia and chronic pain, but other autoimmune conditions. So I've heard medical providers, and I went to the LDN conference years ago in Portland. I got to hear Dr. Jared Younger talk about it and helping with inflammation in the brain. It's the people that work in cancer therapeutics. They use LDN, autoimmune, thyroid. So it's really this huge, part of health that we need to dive into. And I'm not sure why I have my theories on potentially why it's not being given the attention that it needs because of the pharmaceutical companies, but it's definitely something to advocate for. I've heard tremendous results from patients like all of you who are trying it and utilizing it if you can. Again, it's an out-of-pocket expense because it's compounded. I know there's companies out there, you can find a doctor and do telehealth, and they can do and give you a prescription. They're very familiar with it. So I know those nonprofit organizations help patients get access to LDN. And again, it might take some time because I have heard from certain people that the results aren't right away. They needed to be on it for like 3 months or more to actually start to see some benefits with it. And so I'll definitely dive into some of the science. I'll prepare a deck and we'll go into the science of LDN a little bit more. And again, we'll ask and have some more experts. Hello, Rick. It's so good to see you. Does the Frida Center still have an LDN program? No. So Dr. Ginevra has switched to research. So she does have videos on LDN on her YouTube channel. So if you want to go check that out, she does talk about it. And I'll post links to the LDN Research Trust as well, because they do a lot of interviews with providers. There are providers across the country that are talking more about LDN and are familiar and actually understand how to dose it. So Dr. Salibi is one of them in South Carolina. I know there's some in New York that actually work with chronic pain patients as well. So they're all around the country. So it's definitely good to find that list, and they're a reputable organization actually putting out content. They have books and they have wonderful conferences where doctors train each other on this. So LDN, again, is low dose naltrexone, and we'll put some more information in there. Gosh, I think should be a well-known name because I've seen so many benefits with people. If you have had a side effect to LDN and you had to go off of it, please post in the comments as well. But I have heard a lot of positivity around it. Again, if you can get the right dosage, and a low dose is the huge thing, because I have heard people not have good results when they're a really high dose, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's naltrexone, and that's more the opioid antagonist. It's wrong, so I can tell right away providers aren't understanding what we're speaking about, because I have heard from patients that they're on much higher dosages. So that's not what it is. And yes, the gabapentin Cymbalta, we got to really have an honest discussion about Cymbalta, and hopefully I can have maybe Judy, if she is open to it, or one of the admins to that Cymbalta group, of people really struggling to get off of Cymbalta. And they don't, I wish doctors came with a warning label. That one might need a warning label, that you really need to titrate slow, go slow if you need to get off of it. It really has major side effects. And for anyone that's experienced that, I am so sorry. We need to do a better job of informing patients before they get on that medication, because it's handed out quite rapidly and a lot. But to see how many people are in that Facebook group really working to titrate themselves off, and they're going and opening up things and going and titrating by beads. They're measuring it there just because of the major side effects. There's been lawsuits against this, and I really don't understand what is going on. And education with providers is going to be a huge force for what we're trying to do this year. And I saw a question here. Mo asked nutrition changes. I really want to do a lot of videos this year in 2024 regarding this, although you're going to have to prepare, because some of my stuff may be controversial to some of the people. I've seen some videos for people talking about chronic pain, and they really disregard what I did. So the nutritional changes, I'll go into depth and talk about this more in videos, but I really had to dive into a ketogenic lifestyle to change my life around. I did the Walls version, the level 3, so it's nutritionally dense. I didn't do the inflammatory form or the lazy form keto. I went all into a nutritionally dense. I did take some supplements that were helpful for me, like glutathione and things like that, which I need to do videos on. I love nutrition as a component of what we need to work on, because it seems like it has the most flexibility. If you can adjust what works for you, it's going to actually be very broad. You're going to find out what works for you and what doesn't. You can change it. You can change it when you want to change it. Least amount of side effects to adjust it compared to medications, which is why I like it. You're in the driver's seat when it comes to nutrition. You can adjust, you can experiment, you can figure out what works best for you. And then, of course, it's a spectrum. So I had to go strong in one direction. So like I mentioned, I really went keto, because everything else I tried was not strong enough. So I went gluten-free. I did autoimmune. I eliminated all those things. It wasn't enough. And I really noticed that it's like blood sugar balance. And I can dive into more of the science of what happened, because I was looking at the Krebs cycle. I was probably producing too much glucose on the side, and my brain really responds to ketones and this balance. So that's what I dove into the science, and I really felt that it helped, especially for post-exertion. I'm one of those that gets fatigued. So if I do really critical thinking, a lot of it, my brain will start to fatigue out, or the post-exertion fatigue. I have to really manage my movement and energy on what I do. So I'm in that category. And I did hear from Dr. Karazian that keto might be beneficial for people that have more of the post-exertion. And again, I'll post more information too about my clinical training with Dr. Karazian, because he has a full course on this. And I love how he talks about fibromyalgia, because he gives it in a clinical, very direct sense, takes out all the emotion. This is what is happening, what he believes is happening, where we're at with the research science. Here's what may benefit your patients. And I love how direct he is. I love how honest he is. Do this. So yes, I went that direction, and I can adjust it. And I'm going to update everyone too, because I am going to test carnivore, which I had a bad perspective on what carnivore was. For some reason, I thought everybody on carnivore was just eating raw meat. So for some reason I dove in because I think I was adding in too many nuts and seeds while I was on the road because I was craving protein, and it's so bizarre. But as I added more stress to my life, I started to crave more protein. And so I was like, oh, everybody's like, okay, maybe nut butters like this because they're shelf stable. I could travel with it. I think last year I noticed I was starting to get really super hungry after eating the nut butters, and it was throwing my whole system off. And then I would eat some meat and be so satiated. It was bizarre. It was like, I've never been satiated by eating meat. So I'm going to I'm going to adjust. It's very close. Like I was watching some of the carnivore information with like Dr. Ken Berry. He has like a human diet, I think he's coming out with. But see, this is the great thing. I can experiment. I can do this on my own. I can do this stuff. I can research this stuff. I can go animal style, which, you know, Dr. Saladino, who started the Carnivore MD, does more now with incorporation of, you know, meats and some fruits. I don't think I can add as much fruit as he eats because I'm not as active as he is. And I also do have blood sugar issues that I have to manage. But this carnivore diet actually wasn't too far. And there's some people that do blends, I'm finding, like ketovore, but you're carnivore and keto, so you kind of keep it there. And what I do is I have fun with it. So it's an experiment. And if I'm able to, and I think I might do it seasonally. So for example, when greens and plants, you know, in the winter, you can grow them and they're beneficial. But once they start like the summer, it's not part of the seasonal aspect of growth. So that's maybe when I'll start the carnivore itself and go. I did 2 weeks just to experiment to see if I could handle what it is. And I was pretty impressed with the management of it because you can still have good fats. So I can still have my avocados. It is incorporating some of the organ meats, which I have seen a lot of benefits when I do that. That's from Dr. Walls anyway, level 2. She has you incorporate some organ meat as well, which again is so bizarre. Please don't. I know for any of the vegetarians or vegans out there, I'm so sorry. Don't hate on me. I'm trying to get my energy up and manage stress as much as I can. So we'll dive into the details, and I've taken clinical nutrition and functional nutrition. What's that? I've done some certification too. Besides a keto nutritionist, I've went full in because group health coaching, I did a lot with keto, supervised by a clinician before in 2019. So I was helping patients who had neurodegenerative diseases. So also with like epilepsy, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. So I was working supervised by a provider with helping patients actually do a ketogenic lifestyle or metabolic health. The thing is to get metabolically flexible. And even for RECODE, the Bredesen protocol, it's called Keto Flex. So working with Alzheimer's patients to get into a ketogenic state to see if it helps with brain health. There's a lot of science going on in the neurodegenerative space, which could be relevant with some aspects of fibromyalgia too, because I think we need to dive more into brain research. But if you can have more control of the nutrition, if you're able to, I know it takes a lot of energy, and I have a lot of tips because I can't cook to save my life. And I had to figure out how to get good nutrition into my life without being a chef because it's hard. Oh man, like that blender, luckily, you know, I invested in a blender, Instant Pot, those tools, so you can do that. And that's what I did. But I feel like you can have the most control over some of those lifestyle behaviors that we'll get into and the stuff that I work on as a health coach, which brings me to a huge question for everybody. So one thing I'm trying to figure out is, okay, so you get this information online, you watch these videos, you're learning, but how do you implement it? So as a health coach, I work with behavior change, but I want to know for our community specifically, what would help? And this is the challenge because I've worked in group medical visits. We set up groups, people attend and register in a clinical setting. But how, for all of you in the Support Fibromyalgia community, is this a workshop? Is this a program? I don't necessarily gravitate to 30-day challenges because I think they go too fast. Want to really support all of you in implementing these changes because I was super confused. I let Mo, if you love to cook and bake, let's bring you in. You want to host and teach us how to cook because you don't want me teaching anybody how to cook. I blend and I steam and I heat. up things. So all our cooks out there, if you love to cook, have ideas, let's figure out how to share to improve. But I'm trying to figure out what to do and to make this. Should we have it live streamed? Should we pre-record with people that can help us? Zoom workshops? How do we implement this? Because I really want to get the benefit, and I know time zones differ. It's hard. Should we have people in the Zoom with us learning and asking questions and then record it, and the recording goes available to select amount of people, maybe not on social media, but maybe it's free available on another platform. Like all of that stuff I want to dive into with all of you, because really we need to help each other. We have a community. We need to help each other. What type of support do you need? Because I know you can learn, you can watch videos and learn all day, but how are you implementing this at home? How are you grocery shopping? Can you take us grocery shopping? Become really big on reading labels and understanding what to do. But it is challenging to have enough energy to shop, cook, and then by that time it's like, I don't know, people like, I'm just so hungry. I want to eat. I do have a sugar craving, which is really hard to balance out. So when things are in front of me, it's like, ooh, I still haven't retrained my palate with everything that I've done. So it's a challenge, but we need people who love to cook and embrace it. We can make recipe adaptations. And again, it's so flexible because you can take it and implement it to what works best for you. And that's why my bias is with nutrition, because it can be really powerful for health, but also you have a lot more control over it. You're not relying on a doctor necessarily to give it to you, even though I have to say, please talk to your doctor before making any nutrition questions. And I think I'm totally going to drop that this year. You know what? Explore, be intentional with the nutrition. I know it's tough, but if you're starting to make intentional moves, even when it comes to reducing processed sugar, finding out, controlling your blood sugar regulation, if you're falling asleep after eating meals, stuff like that, to like look at small intentional changes, that is huge. You don't need a doctor to tell you that. If you go to your doctor and you say, I've changed my nutrition, I hope they celebrate with you, because that is what it takes and you're doing the work. So that's what we want to acknowledge, like moving forward. And paleo, this is where, and this is hard too, because I have to ask too on the paleo, it's for what the body needs. What paleo were you looking at? Because there are versions that are nutritionally dense, and what does your body need is a huge question. And Katrina, as I told you, I've been incorporating organ meat, which is odd and maybe not for everyone, but did my body need that? Does my body need that forever? And so this is where you might go somewhere for a temporary part of time and feel better. You can utilize it, you can shift. It just depends. And that's what's interesting about all of this, and why I dove in to understanding people's relief in the carnivore space. Because I've heard a lot. I don't think it's hype. I know keto, I can verify that it worked for me, but I did it nutritionally dense, which people find very restrictive. But see, my body needed those fats and it gravitated to those good fats right away. It loved it. I even felt a difference in my strength when I really got into it, where I was having the good fat smoothies. For the first time in a very long time, I picked up my laundry basket like I was Hercules, and I noticed the difference in my strength. I always talk about myself being clumsy because I tend to drop things. Like when I'm washing dishes, I don't have a good grip. I didn't associate it with strength, but as I did that change nutritionally, I noticed I was not dropping less. I felt like I had more strength in my hands, which was so bizarre. And that's why when I picked up my laundry basket, I felt like my arms were not going to fall out for the first time in my life. And like over 30 years, I was like, whoa, what is this all about? And I was probably nutritionally deficient in certain things. My body just responded differently. That's how we are. Some people really do well with raw vegan. Raw food. I can't digest raw food very well still with some stomach issues. I've gotten better and can incorporate it. But yes, I mean, it's paleo. And so gluten-free. And see, here's the problem. Yeah, the carbs and protein, how much you need. Some people need less protein. Some people need more protein. Also depends on your activity level, what you're doing. And then again, we have to watch it when we're transitioning to all of these nutrition differences, because if we're buying products that are gluten-free, we still have to read the labels. The carb impact may be what's going on. So this is how we support each other too, with more cooking at home, being in control of our ingredients. Frozen vegetables aren't bad either. So if you have access to that, I know we need to work on a budget. It can feel expensive. So I want to break that down more as well, because I want to be conscious of pricing. I watch different people that do the grocery shopping. I'm really impressed with Walmart because they've added a lot of good quality stuff that you can do. And especially if you can buy it on sale, or it's just how to read those labels and how to find the products you need at better deals. And even with Sprouts, like I only go to Sprouts to buy stuff when it's on sale. Same with different grocery stores. Aldi's has really good deals, especially on frozen vegetables that are just frozen vegetables itself. No seasoning. Let yourself add the seasoning. Start to get good at developing that palate for seasoning if you like it, but just, do what you can to incorporate if vegetables are your thing. I'm going to laugh because as I move into testing carnivore, vegetables aren't their thing. So it's fascinating to see if I can get some gut healing benefit from this. So I'll document it for you. And like I said, I'm sorry to my vegans and vegetarians. I apologize in advance. But we're going to go carnivore soon. That is one of my things that I'm going to test out in 2024. I've been walls, sort of. People will see me and I'll veer off because I want a treat. Like pizza, I love pizza. If I can do it gluten-free, it's not the greatest for me overall because of the carb impact. I know the more carbs I have, the more brain fog I get, the more fatigued I get. So it's something, but at least I've known, and this is maybe what you can do too, is figure out how your body responds and how you get back on track. And this is so important for us to try to create awareness around. But just the fact that you're creating an intent and understanding that it might be helpful for you and your fibromyalgia, that's what we celebrate, and that's where we start. So I appreciate everybody leaving comments. I got off track. So let me get back to the track, which is good. This is a community update. I appreciate this. This is good content because I know that we can go forward with nutrition. We'll create videos on everything and figure out where you're at and encourage people to ask questions. Is this the stuff that we should do in Zooms? So we can ask questions because there's no judgment. That's the thing. No matter where you're at, no judgment. Take away any stigmas on right or wrong, because you might have responses and that's differently to each other. And that's okay. There's no judgment here on where it is. I will explain what I do. It may not be appropriate for anything that you do because you may not like avocados at all. So that's okay. But we'll definitely share. It's all about supporting each other, and that's the huge difference. Okay, so what's new here? I definitely am going to be highlighting more research on this channel, and I'm going to do deeper dives on all these research articles. We're going to do shorts for people that want short form content. We're going to do longer form content in the videos to dive in. If you love research and have seen new research out there, fibromyalgia, or even some of the overlapping conditions, please send it in because I would love to hear from you. Now, talk about face palm aspect. It's so frustrating, and I try not to rant on here. I may rant at the end when I do a personal update with everybody. But this, only 1 out of 10 clinicians adhere to ACR criteria for fibromyalgia. This came out recently. This was at the tail end of the year from an international survey. And it's so frustrating. How can we have a cohesive, at least basic fundamental diagnosis and treatment for fibromyalgia before we get in advance? This is such a mess, and it is disappointing to actually read this. So what we find out, and again, I'll do deeper dives on all of this research in separate videos at another point in time, but most healthcare professionals surveyed did not follow the American College of Rheumatology, the ACR criteria for fibromyalgia. Is anyone out there, are you familiar with the updated criteria? Is your medical provider familiar with the updated criteria? Because there's now research studies that compare the diagnosis, if you've been diagnosed in the 1990 formula versus the updated criteria. And it's so bizarre what they're learning from different research. and different changes. And there's some research that compares that. And I did hear from someone who talked at ACR, and he was certain that we need to go back to the 1990 criteria, which was confusing. So I'm confused. And if I'm confused and we're confused, our doctors are definitely confused, because this is not helpful. So this international survey was conducted to evaluate whether healthcare professionals are familiar with the ACA criteria for diagnosing fibromyalgia, the cause of the condition, and whether to adhere to clinical guidelines when treating their patients. Clinicians were invited to participate via email and social media advertising. Eligible participants were required to have an active patient practice. So these are active patients. They're actively treating patients at the moment, and then reside in one of the countries included in the study. I'll be sure to post links. And again, I'll do a deeper dive. So if you happen to do a deeper dive and read more of this and have comments, please do share so we can include it in the next video where we talk about this, because I even saw the age group. So I think I expected the physicians to be a little older, but the average age of the physicians were about 38. So it's like, oh no, we really need to grab people and do medical education. I know I've been talking about Project Echo for a long time. I've been a broken record trying to get more physicians on board for training. And this is going to be huge for 2024. I'm begging any doctors out there, if you're an MD, right now we need MDs, but we might have to start also with nurses. So if you are also a nurse who's interested in any sort of medical education and training other nurses, if you're a PA, an NP, we need desperately, it's obvious now, and I know there's been some ACR research too, that shows across the board that doctors are not educated on the updated information for fibromyalgia. How do we get this education into the hands of the healthcare providers? So at least the basic fundamentals of what they're looking for, so you can get an adequate diagnosis. So you will take a patient history, you'll get some blood tests, they'll do a physical examination, and you can go from there, right? So what is needed? What's next? How do we do this? Because there are tons of treatments, which we've heard. We've heard this before in other past research. I think there was over 180 different treatment modalities that people could implement, which isn't a bad thing, as we talked about, because some people might be going against the criteria if they are prescribing or talking about LDN. So this is where the details of the survey, and surveys are always, you have to look at it very carefully when it's self-reported information, but it's still fascinating to understand. And it's really obvious that we need medical education. Medical education, we need a diverse group of medical doctors to come in and provide it so that we can sort of mitigate some of the bias that might be coming up. But, oh, yes, this is the other rant that we need to address. It is a real condition, and medical providers out there, if you are on social media doing clickbait right now, you are doing a major disservice to millions of patients out there. And I wanted to do a short on this because there's a few doctors. I had to stop going on TikTok because TikTok seems to love to send me negative content, like doctors saying that it's not real. So I wanted to put together a thing that these doctors seem to be living in the 1990s or 1980s. Like, I just don't know where they get this information from. I also was disappointed because they say they're functional medicine providers, which I completely disagree with. If they're saying that, please block these people. I also think it's really clickbaity because they say it's not real, then they don't have this, then they want you to sign up for the very expensive program. You're going to take very expensive tests. It may end and take very expensive supplements that might not even help you. So these people just need to stop. Like, I try not to get upset because I just want to comment. And, TikTok limits the amount of characters. And I'm like, urgh. But we just have to push forward. We need this training. Yes, it's real condition. There are doctors that do believe that it's real condition, but what I noticed at ACR was they don't have the tools. The tools they were given and educated on aren't working. So it's creating more problems for the patients. It's not enough. So what are those tools? What does that look like? We need to get that information into the hands of healthcare professionals, because I do think there are a lot of people out there that can help, but they've been left with like nothing to do, and patients are educating them as much as they can, but we can only do so much as well. So it's going to be a collective community that we are building, and moving ahead, we do have collaborative care that we are launching. It's a huge project that we want to get off the ground, but it's going to be important for all of us. So there's a lot to do and a lot to take on in 2024 for sure. This is another study we'll get into, is fibromyalgia and mortality. I just wanted to point out before I dive in that fibromyalgia should be taken seriously. Yes. Now, these are international studies. I think we have a lot of advocates more internationally, which is fascinating. These are studies we want to bring in some of the researchers if we can, even if they might have to, like, we'll adjust time zones and work with them, because I think we need to hear from these researchers to emphasize the importance of what they're saying. So this was interesting too, with not only some of the aspects of what they found and should be like definitely taken seriously, accident prevention. And what I find intriguing is prevention and treatment of infections, which ties into what's going on. A lot of people getting sick. Please take care of yourself, because it is not fun to have a co-infection of a flu or something like that with fibromyalgia. I think it gets discounted on the impact too much for certain people. If you can recover easily, I commend you, but I know it's a rough go with fibromyalgia and getting that. I don't know why it got discounted somewhere along the line, but it shouldn't be. So we're going to discuss this, and this is going to be important also to try to bring to our congressional representatives to be like, this needs to be taken seriously, folks. We need funding. We need you to focus on increased funding. The funding at the NIH does not match the prevalence of research funding for fibromyalgia. So this is going to be an important one to review. Also, we'll be highlighting too, this was an interesting that came out, and I have to dive into it because my brain is focused somewhere else right now to understand the science, but unbiased quantitative mass spectrometry-based proteomics can be used to discover cerebral spinal fluid proteins that are biomarkers for conditions like this. So this is future studies, which is interesting. So they were able to conduct an unbiased assessment of sample proteins. This enabled the team to identify and quantify proteins that might be of a diagnostic or even therapeutic importance. So just diving into this science a little bit more was interesting. We need to do this. I would love to hear from more researchers that are in more of the ME space doing research, because they're doing an incredible job advancing research, even at the NIH. They've been doing some NIH ME/CFS seminars and trainings for doctors. That's what we need for fibromyalgia for sure. And I think we can utilize, hopefully, the support from our ME/CFS community to take a parallel approach with fibromyalgia. So all of this is coming out. There's a lot of research that came out at the tail end of the year. This one, I think many of us may know, but it's interesting. Again, they're looking at the gut. So for this new study published in the Journal of Biomedicines, the research looked at more than 1.2 million IBS patient hospitalizations from 4,000 different US hospitals over a 3-year period, and found that patients with IBS were 5 times more likely to have fibromyalgia. Okay, so we know that this is related to the gut-brain axis. So we're diving in. What can we do with this piece of research? So we found this, and this is where we just talk more about, okay, so how can we translate this, go a little bit further? What can we do with this? How can we help patients in the end? So it's a super important part of the process. We'll dive more into that research as well, and then talk about gut health. Many of you know, if you watch my previous videos, I also talk about tracking bowel movements, the importance of gut health, getting into that a little bit more. So there's some good evolving science. A lot of the science too comes from the neurodegenerative spaces. So with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, done a lot of gut information, MS. I've learned a lot from Dr. Terry Walls. So let's translate it over to fibromyalgia community as well. We also have, I wanted to point this out because I'm going to dive into this research as well when I get a chance. So these muscle abnormalities worsen after post-exertion malaise in long COVID. This is going to be interesting to see if it can translate more into any of us that have more of this post-exertion aspect when we exercise, because it crosses over not only with ME/CFS and fibromyalgia, but there's a lot of this because some people say we have components of both, but it's not explained. So I'm glad that this came out because it confirmed that there is a lower exercise capacity in patients with long COVID, which can be partly explained by the changes in skeletal muscle structure and function. Skeletal muscle mitochondrial function and metabolism were altered in patients with long COVID, and this worsened after the induction of post-exertional malaise. So intense exercise is not good for patients with long COVID. Can we take some of these aspects and look at fibromyalgia? I'm hoping someone does. I'm hoping more people talk about this aspect, because if we're looking at that skeletal muscle mitochondrial function, I think it'll be important. Mitochondrial function overall, we need to talk about more, especially its capacity in the brain. But all this function for metabolism and things, I think it just coexists and parallels in a lot of different conditions. So I was really happy to see this research. Another part of what's ahead for the organization is we are going to be doing more advocacy. If you're interested in getting involved with advocacy, fibromyalgia advocacy, so there's a lot of legislative advocacy on a federal level, state level, proclamations. We're going to be working with people that want to learn more. There's going to be an online training portal that we need to put together, but we want to share. This is about mentorship and continuing on what we need to do, because we see other groups, they go to Capitol Hill, they create this legacy, they get increased funding, they work on other legislative issues. And so this is part of the programming for the Support Fibromyalgia Network that we want to share and continue. We want to build teams of people. We want to find people that are interested in mentoring, training other people, and are excited to learn more, because we need you in all aspects of healthcare policy, because it's got to change. There's so much going on, whether it's Social Security disability, whether it's federal level of funding. There's so much we need to do when it comes to aspects of this. So that's why we want you to get involved in a system that wants to have you learn and teach and support you. You won't be on your own. So we are going to be taking more virtual advocacy meetings with our congressional reps this year to help support people, because I know traveling to DC is intensive, not to mention costly. So we'll do the trainings. And there's different ways to get involved too. So we also funnel people to other organizations that have training. We talk about the Masterclass for Patients Rising quite a bit. There's other organizations that you can get involved with as well for advocacy efforts, and they always have training. So we encourage people to learn as much as they can if they're interested. So it's not just about fibromyalgia as well. Even though the DC trip, we do focus on fibromyalgia specific advocacy, but we do encourage people to support other organizations and support other training so you can learn. We will be sharing more on proclamations. We would love to do a 50-state proclamation, so we can help you do that too. It's fun, and you get to represent your community and all of us as well. So we would love to share that process with you. Then in Washington, D.C., we are currently fundraising. We have a select group of team leaders that will be going with us in March. We'll be meeting in person in Capitol Hill with our congressional leaders. I know a lot of people are going back to in-person, which is so difficult. I love the virtual meetings, which is why we're going to continue a hybrid, because again, it's labor intensive, it's cost intensive to travel to DC. If you are in a drivable range and are able to drive or have your caregiver come with you, and this does interest you, please reach out. Right now, we're taking some of our team leaders and helping them actually get there and select few so that we can meet in person for more appropriations requests. It's a lot of strategy. It takes up a lot of brain work. And all of the delegates that go with us, they're volunteering their time. So what we're doing right now is we're fundraising to try to help need-based costs. So if you do know of anyone that might have some gift cards they want to donate, or Uber cards, grocery cards, because we do get water and other things, groceries for everyone to share with everybody, would really appreciate it. So we are doing a fundraiser right now to help support that. And again, this is need-based to help with costs of travel. We have a magnificent team in South Dakota and in Lilly. You may have heard their interview. They're excited to share. They're doing a fundraiser as well, so they could use your support too. Really want to emphasize to our congressional reps that the age, it's expanding. So all genders, all ages do get diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So that is what we are appealing to, and we're really sharing that information and making it valuable for our representatives. So, wow. Okay, that was a lot more than I intended to, but this is great because it's a community, it's active. Sadly, most doctors don't collaborate. Yes. There's always exception. Yeah, well, we're trying to find these exceptions. And it's hard not to have, I mean, I'm going into it. This has been rough because when we started the organization, I really wanted to focus on medical education. So determined. And then we got training with Project Echo. Was so determined. It's challenging to find, I mean, the providers are super busy right now. And for a part of it, we need rheumatologists who are really exceptionally busy managing autoimmune conditions, but we need to teach. So I am looking for people out there who are medical providers, maybe even if they're kind of retired, but they're interested in teaching other medical providers, people that love to mentor, love to teach other people. Project Echo has a fantastic outlet. I know they're doing the chronic pain one in Canada, and they're doing really well. So in other countries, they're doing really well. We got to get it going in the States. So we need these medical providers to come in and be able to educate. I wish I could do it, but I have formulated at least the decks. And so I need someone to approve it so we can get medical education, and they'll, maybe we do it with other allied professionals that can get credit as well with our nurses. I know PAs and NPs can also get CMEs, but we'll look at CEUs. What is it going to take to educate the entire system, at least on the fundamentals of fibromyalgia? We got to get it started. And that is a huge major goal of what is coming down the pipeline. Yes, this is hard, but it's the bedside manners, and we need to acknowledge this and change. I love this impact because it's frustrating. And from what we saw with that research too, is 1 in 10 people are observing the criteria, and it just creates a rift between patients and their providers. It doesn't help, and we need to repair, because I really strongly believe providers got into this to help patients. We've just given them a lot of barriers and a lot of frustrations, not us personally, but the system that was created. The medical education system in the past for fibromyalgia was provided by rheumatologists. We haven't trained primary care physicians. We haven't had mass programs with primary care physicians, internal medicine physicians. It's been predominantly more in the rheumatology pain space, but rheumatologists are wait, where does this fit in? And then the tools are 2013, the last sort of evolvement of an anticonvulsant, which the treatment, and many of us don't have success on those medications. Now we're okay, what do we do? How do we train them? How do we get in? Which brings me to the final portion of this video, which just to update everyone, personal. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Fibromyalgia Conference. Anyone that participated, all our speakers, oh, I love you so much. Thank you for supporting the event. We are still going to work on breaking down the videos to do presentations, also create shorts so you get that information as well. I kind of dropped off. My dog got diagnosed with IVDD, so I'm diving into a holistic veterinary approach to help treat my dog. If anyone has experience in this, let me know. But man, that also is a medical system that you have to navigate, because they were really quick to put my dog on gabapentin and trazodone. So I'm okay, what else can we do when it comes to this information? So I've been a little sidetracked with that. And many of you know too, you heard during the conference, I am studying, taking prerequisites. My goal is to go back to school to get into clinical medicine if they'll let me in. I need a school to do this, because in the meantime, as I'm tracking down medical providers that want to teach other medical providers, which I need you, if you're out there, send them my way. We need people that are willing to mentor other medical providers. But in the meantime, the plan is to go to school, become a clinician. I think I've finally decided the NP route, nurse practitioner, so that eventually I can teach. Don't have to search the wide and have all of this stuff, because we need education. We need medical education. It's more apparent ever. I've known this. I've been a broken record talking about it. We need healthcare professionals educating other healthcare professionals, having clinical experience, what to do, try to congregate, try to like see if we can mitigate some of that bias coming in, because there's a lot of opinions about fibromyalgia and how to treat it, which is fine. Maybe there's people that fall into those categories and can be helped by those medical providers, but not everyone. You can't fit everyone into one box. So basic education of fibromyalgia. Let's go through this ACR criteria with everybody, see where we're at. Let's take a look at lab values. And the thing with Project Echo is it's case-based learning. So everybody, all the PHI is taken out, but patient presentations, let's really dive into those lab values, because I think in history, inflammation markers were not taken seriously enough, because I think they were attached to BMI. There's a lot of bias in the past, and we are not good. There's also a lot of just not accepted. We're not including a lot of genders and ages in the past research. Ethnicities, races haven't been well included with diversity. So we need to remember that when we teach, and take these lab values, examine it, see, and really potentially dive into the basics like anemia, inflammation markers, look at diabetes, like the basic fundamentals that might get skipped over. And I am talking to some of those functional medicine providers because they tend to skip. Oh, now you need a parasite cleanse. Okay, wait. So I came in to address now you're giving me a parasite cleanse. So now I got to do a coffee enema up my butt and pay for all these supplements. But like, you need to check these fundamentals first. Let's go back to the basics, figure this out, get a guideline for medical providers far and wide, and then you can do advanced stuff. But we don't have this basic. There's not a whole lot of agreement with the medical professionals, and it's very confusing. It's confusing for healthcare professionals to learn from other people. It's confusing for patients. This is a mess. So it's time to clean it up. It's time to get serious about cleaning it up and advocating for consistent information, at least on these fundamentals. And if people want advanced information, and healthcare providers only want to do advanced training and have a price tag for that, that's okay. We'll eventually, let's talk to you, figure out what that looks like. But this fundamental basic, let's go back to what the ACR criteria means when it comes to this. Let's get everybody caught up on where it evolved from the 1990 criteria to what it looks like now. What are we missing? What things might be comorbid in here where we might have to assess and rule out, because there's a lot going on with this that we haven't really assessed, especially with overlapping autoimmune conditions. I think it gets disregarded way too much, that Hashimoto's is actually an autoimmune condition. And that gets overlooked with thyroid issues, connective tissue issues are hard to distinguish. What is really happening here? And we need to help our providers. I know they don't have a lot of time for education. So how do we simplify this? But in the meantime, we will be giving a lot of patient education, as I mentioned. How do we implement this video content? But we want to help people implement it in their own homes. So is this going to be Zoom workshops where you show up and then it's pre-recorded, it's recorded with people? So we have you live asking questions. Happy to do that all day long. And then we can record it for people. I know some people don't like to appear on camera, so maybe we can hide you while we're doing that, or just make it live in that space. We are working and building a Kajabi. We're going to be doing more surveys as well, because I have a lot of questions as we addressed some of the medication route, if you've been on it, and as I've done deeper dives into what's happening with the community of Cymbalta, I have a lot of questions. And also LDN, were you ever told about LDN? Do you know about LDN? So all of these questions we want to get answered. Deep into this, I am, as I mentioned, so I'm studying. So anyone a statistics nerd? Because boy, my brain hurts with statistics. So I'll keep you guys updated on that, but let's do more nutrition. I'll keep you updated on what I'm experimenting on. I fully biohack and experiment on my own nutrition and lifestyle just to try to help. I'm not very good with managing some of the stress, which I will bring in health coaches who are good at that to help us manage with that. I think stress tends to be my middle name, but we're dedicated to supporting all of you with the fibromyalgia community. I go to sleep thinking about all of you. I wake up thinking about all of you. It's really important we move all of this forward in 2024. Thank you everyone for being here. Hello, Crystal. Good to see you. Jeremy, good to see you. Please tune in again. Leave, if you digest this video, if ideas come to you on what kind of resources you need, what you would like to see, how you want to get involved. We need more people involved with our nonprofit organization for sure. I know Anne is going to be involved, and Anne and Lily, those are the ones we are fundraising for too, to get to Washington, D.C. I would love to see them there. We're going to do this. We're going to have them meet with their congressional representatives. I'm so excited to have this and look at more programs for the youth with Anne and Lily. It's super important for our fibromyalgia community. But get involved. Let's brainstorm on ways that you can get involved. We utilize our strength here, and we appreciate people that are interested in learning. So if you may not be like, you may not be an expert in certain areas, that's okay. But if you're interested in learning, we accept that because we've built on mentorship. Have to continue this because it's been a challenge, honestly, for our group, because groups ahead may have said that they did this stuff, but what they didn't do was share the information. And unfortunately, even some of these researchers that you may have heard of, they've kind of passed away in the last 3 years, and they didn't pass along the information. So when we say that we have to like start again from scratch, we're going to have to start again from scratch, which is super annoying, and we don't want to have to continue that. So we need to pass this on to other people who have strengths in these areas, who want to take it on, want to continue anything, can find paths forward, because we got to make changes. And hoarding information, controlling information that's going to help fibromyalgia patients isn't worth it. It doesn't help anyone. And there's been a lot of gatekeepers. There still is. There's gatekeepers for chronic pain, which I can address in a separate video. But there have been gatekeepers for fibromyalgia for many, many years. We can't have that anymore. So our organization really wants to come in. We're going to teach, mentor, build the community. This is not about competition. So we're looking for people to get involved that are really it's not about competing against each other. So we're looking for people that want to be team players with each other, want to share. We love our educators. If you're a teacher, if you're a retired teacher and a social workers, you just have these biggest hearts to like share and mentor and help other people. We could definitely use your help, because this is the emphasis of it, because we can't, like, I think, who was it? The researcher Wolf. I think I found out he passed away. Never had a real chance to connect, but there's been so much. And I know Dan shared information with me from all the stuff that was going on the East Coast in the early 2000s. Now, I was affiliated with the West Coast information. I didn't travel much back then, but I learned that there's a whole subset of the fibromyalgia community that was doing education and workshops all in different parts of the country. Why? I didn't have a clue. I don't know. I mean, I did have serious brain fog back then, but it wasn't introduced. So I think there's been way too much control and people sitting at the top. No more of this. No, we have to work together, have to figure out how to share this information. I'm huge in open source, because we get creative people in here, we bring them in, we figure out what the best thing is and the best approach for the fibromyalgia community. So we're going to be doing this moving forward. Yes, so Anne is a user of LDN. That didn't sound right. So Anne uses LDN. So she has seen benefits from that. So that's a great resource. So again, I've heard so many people talk about the benefits of LDN. We need to dive in, and I don't understand that research study. Maybe dosage was too high. Need to get more of the details of what actually they were looking at, but it did hint that it helped the brain, like brain fog and some of that, which is huge because of the inflammation in the brain affecting pain aspects. So yes, we do need to build each other up, work together. Thank you, everybody, all my fibromyalgia friends. Until the next time, please stay nerdy. Sending you a lot of fibromyalgia hugs out there. Definitely, please take care of yourself, and I will talk to you later. Bye.